good to be back to the ministry of antiquities. This is actually my home. Nowhere else would be another home for me. We've been working since March 2016 and conducted 5 seasons so far for the University of Tübingen, and we're funded by the DFG for 3 years to conduct a project that is mainly focusing on conducting a second round of epigraphic survey to the Sarab tomb in Sakkara. I have my eyes on these tombs since I was a PhD student at Brown University, because my dissertation was pretty much focusing on the copies of the Saite pyramid text in the Saite tombs in Heliopolis, Abu Sir, and Saqqara. Just to give you an idea as to the distribution of the shaft tombs in Saqqara, we have been mostly clustered around the pyramid of King Unas, and they were excavated in late 19th century, exactly in 1899, when Maspru discovered the tomb of Chanihibu, Samtik Padinisit, and Nesparakzed, and Padinit Hekamsa. Then in 1950, Zaki Saleh excavated the tomb of Amuntefnacht. In the middle of the 19th century, in the 20th century, the tombs of Peru and Nefer Ibra Sanit were discovered on the pyramid of King Usakat, sorry. And Lepsis had documented 2 tombs, that is the very famous Peruah and something Neferti. We don't know where these tombs are right now. They're completely lost, and hopefully someday we can rediscover them and document them as well. The inspectorate at Sakkara in 2005, I think, or 7, had re-excavated the tomb of Ujahor. Then we have another tomb from Samtik around the monastery of Abba Jamia. Yet another tomb that I would love to relocate at some point and publish as well. Our project is mainly a conservation, documentation, publication project. Publication project in the sense that we would like to redocument these tombs with the application of modern documentation techniques, particularly digital documentation. So the tombs are very well known and everybody knew about them. We were not the first people to go to these tombs and explore. The Italians had their focus on the tombs of Chanihibu, Samtik, and Padinisit, and they produced 1 monograph in 1979, and then their project never gained momentum because they went to Bakken and stayed there. So I had the idea to put in an application for a funding from the Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft when I was in Tübingen, spending my 2-year Humboldt fellowship. And I applied, and I was very lucky because we got money to conduct the first phase of our project in the tombs of Samtik, Padinisit, and Amuntefnacht. First tomb we started with was in March 2016. We started with the tomb of Padinisit, and he is an overseer of the storage department in the time of King Amaziz. So pretty much we know exactly where these tombs belong in terms of history. There are overlapping Dynasty 26 and Dynasty 27. So one of the main goals we have is to produce a survey map and re-excavate the superstructure, because it's an enigma as to what was once on top of these main shafts. Whether it was a mastaba pyramid or something else, we still have no idea. Even the very well excavated tombs in Abu Sir by the Czech mission do not provide concrete clues as to the superstructure. So we're very lucky dealing with this mound of debris on top of the main shaft of Padinisit, and we have found clues and evidence for platform for ritual activities on top of the main shaft of Padinisit, and right behind it is the chapel that is on top of the side shaft, and then around the main shaft would be evidence for massive walls. And I do believe in terms of roofing of this area that they're mostly mounds and no roofs on top of it. So it would be a mound surrounded with a massive wall. And this is the image. One of our documentation steps that we took is produce a computerized hieroglyphic text of the text of Padinisit, but we used it for something else, which is documentation of the colors, because the release of Padinisit's Harlequin release, and we wanted to document the colors as they are before the intervention of conservation, and also hopefully in the future that we can do digital restoration of these Harlequin reliefs. The process will be repeated again once we are done with the conservation of the tomb of Padinisit. And we, of course, we apply digital epigraphy. big thing about digital epigraphy is how to obtain a rectified image. This is something I had to experiment with a lot during my tenure in the documentation center in the Ministry of Antiquities. I had very good photographers that we spoke a lot in 2010 as to how can we get that rectified images. But we were very lucky this year because I had the collaboration of the eScience Center in Tübingen. Those are digital archaeologists. And one of the things that they helped us with is to obtain a 3D model, a photogrammetric model that is to scale of all the reliefs of Padinise, Psamtik, and Amuntifna. And then we can use those images for digital epigraphy. All the yellow flags that you're seeing are our points that we take coordinates with the total station, because this is what can create the space for us with an exact measurements. The photos, all the images we take with overlaps, we give it to a photoscan software that creates the mesh, and all these yellow frames that you're seeing is actually the position of the camera where we took the photographs. After creating the mesh and creating the 3D model, we feed it with the coordinates of all the points that we put on the wall, and then it creates the space for us with the exact measurements. And the photographs are really high resolution that you could directly draw on these photographs. This is a good way to obtain a rectified image with almost zero distortion. That was a big challenge for digital epigraphy. The other aspect of our project in Padinise is the conservation. This photograph was taken in 2010 when I was in the Ministry of Antiquities. And it shows you that the dirt on the floor, and the biggest problem was humidity. Humidity and the dirt created a lot of dirt both on the surface, along with crystallization of salt. So dealing with humidity, we had to create a ventilation system that is a gradual to reduce humidity. So we turned all the shafts, the secondary shafts, into air shafts that gradually reduce humidity and brings fresh air. Then we had to develop our strategy as to the conservation and philosophy as well. We all agreed, meaning myself and my team of conservators, who are all of them from Sakkara and Sharkea. They all said that the best intervention is the least intervention. So we're not dealing so much. We only have to go directly to the cause of decay and dealing with humidity and removal of dirt along with crystallized salt mechanically. So we experimented a lot with solutions that is basically alcohol and distilled water. And we agreed that we only clean around the hieroglyphs. And this is an image of the northern wall of Padinise with all these bright areas where we experimented with the solution first. Then this is part of the results we get. And eventually, when this wall was completed, this is how it looks like right now with these polychrome reliefs. Part of our facsimile that we're producing is going to be the black and white line drawings, but also we are documenting the colors in a separate facsimile, and hopefully the third facsimile would be a digital color restoration of these images. Of course, a second round of epigraphic and excavation survey, meaning that you go back to the sites that had been excavated 100 years ago, and it has been proven over and over again that is a very fruitful endeavor for all archaeologists. So 1 meter to the south of where Maspro excavated and stopped, we found an intact shaft right here. And this shaft, it has these rounded marks around it, and I was thinking that we are going to discover a new Dynasty 26 tombs because they all have these small subsidiary shafts. But we were very surprised because one deposit after another of intact pottery. Some of them are cookingware, as you can see, and some of these contexts in the shaft that yield some linen, red linen and yellow linen with all this discoloration. Especially this one, this is my favorite because it has this brownish area, it has discolored area. I think it's an indication of the use of some oil. So at this point, we were collecting all the botanical remains in the shaft that were put inside these vessels, and Minatori had her own brief report and examination of this botanical remains. And one of the things that she told me is that all the botanical remains that were discovered inside these vessels had almost a very low economic and medical value. And the other thing that she told me, and it was very interesting, She said the assemblage of botanical remains we have in this shaft is almost identical to the assemblage of botanical remains found in KV 63. Knowing KV 63, it is an embalmer cachette. So we are now changing our understanding of this shaft from a tomb into an embalmer cachette. And it gets even more interesting when we go down 9 meters into this shaft. We hit the Second Dynasty galleries, and that particular context where we have this potsherds with stones thrown on top of them. We clean it and we go down deep into the shaft. At the bottom of the shaft, this area of about 2 meters by 3 meters and 1 meter thick of concentration of potsherds. And in some area, we have those vessels and potsherds and measuring cups, those are made of marble clay, and all these stones were thrown over them. And the stones bear remains of mortar on all sides, which means they have been dismantled from a construction or building, and then they were deposited along with the potsherds, along with the embalming vessels. So it means there has to be a building attached to these stones. And ended up, this area at the bottom of the shaft is a large room. It's about 5 meters by about 8 or 9 meters, and above it runs the Second Dynasty galleries right here. The main feature of this room is this ledge right here, which occupies the eastern side of it, and on the other side of it, attached to this ledge right here, is this vessel with the walls built around it. The very fact that this vessel is here with this wall around it is an indication of yet another human activity happening underground. We're talking about 13 meters deep. So the assemblage product that came out of this embalmer cachette, this is part of it, mostly this cookingware right here with the evidence of burning and cooking. But the very interesting part, corpus, is this measuring cups right here, and also the red bowls. All of them, they bear labels written in Demotic, in black ink. Some of them, like this measuring cup, it's the same cup. It has the word, the phrase mahfidu, which means fourth, either that's fourth day or fourth time, fourth quality of what? Of the tuat oil. We all know what is the tuat. It's one of the sacred 7 oils that is used in the embalming and also in the opening of the mouth. Another red bowl would have this mixture of sepet oil, yet another one of the 7 sacred oils that used in the embalming and the opening of the mouth, along with the antiu, the myrrh. So I am very curious to know what this mixture looked like, chemically speaking. Some of the cups that we have had the phrase wet tip S, and other cups would have the phrase wet tip F, which means embalming or wrapping his head, embalming or wrapping her head. It seems that we are dealing with 2 sets of paraphernalia. One set for female, other sets for male. Some of the measuring cups, I hope that you guys can make out this word right here. It's passage, which means to boil. So clearly, there is a boiling process happening here with these measuring cups. And this is another bowl that has the same mixture of sepet oil along with the antiu. So, as I said, this embalmer cachette is very interesting, but what's more interesting is these stones that were thrown on top of the vessels right there. It must be connected to a structure. And only 1 meter to the south of this shaft, we identified the corner of yet the structure that I was looking for. And I'm thinking that has to be the embalming workshop at the time. To make it more clearly that this place is connected to whatever we found inside this shaft, is yet this bowl here, identical to the ones we found down in the shaft, was found in situ. Really? Okay. So very quickly, we excavated this area and we found this mud this basin with the mud brick structure around it. And the interesting thing about this rectangular place is this ramp in the middle with the basin to the west, another basin to the east, and the one in the east had a context of vessels with soiled linen that has a black substance. It's either bitumen or tar. We don't know what it is, but it is something that has to do with embalming. And since there is boiling process, we had to have a brazier or something like that. We found 2 braziers in the along with the embalming vessels that were put in the embalmer cachette. So this particular structure looks exactly like the Ibu tent in the Old Kingdom with the main ramp and the 2 rooms right here. So we continue working that because we are now dealing with an embalmer installation, and all of a sudden to the south of this ramp and the two basins right here, we have a large shaft and a rectangular place with a side entrance here and a lot of intrusive burials and cuts and shafts around this structure that seem to be very prestigious structure at this point. So it is very connected with embalming, but what this shaft is about, it has burials going down 30 meters deep, different conflicts of burials on different levels, on different depth. And one of them, the first one of them is right here, we call it Mummy 0. And here, about 3 meters deep in the western wall, we have this plaster covering a burial, and it is written in Demotic in 3 lines, and it's something about a struggle between a wife, her mother-in-law, over the mummy of the deceased that is put in here. It seems that the mother-in-law was not approving the very fact that he was buried in this area. So we go down to about 9 meters, yet on the western wall, we found a cut that takes us to the Second Dynasty gallery that was reused for burial during Dynasty 19 and Dynasty 26. About 9 meters deep down in the northern wall, we found a burial chamber with this L-shaped blockage, and inside it there is a hallway and 2 niches in the north, another 2 in the east. With this, in the hallway, there is rows of mummies on top of one another, and one of them had a full set of ushabtis right here, as you can see. But it was put on a layer of plaster right here. We removed it, and we found this unfinished sarcophagus with a mummy of a lady with beaded net, along with this gilded plasters of the 4 sons of Horus and the goddess Nut, as you can see. So, socioeconomic differences, yes, this lady was very rich. Right next to her, somebody who had no economic means whatsoever, only to afford a cut where his skeleton was put, and a lid that is made of 4 stones like this. Another person with a much better economic means afforded himself or herself at this point a coffin, and along with a set of vessels that as burial equipment, along with ushabtis figurines and a lot of beads. Some other people would have nothing but only stones as cover, as a lid for the cut. And the person on the floor right here would afford definitely a much more elaborate and expensive set of amulets, including this hematite headrest and the obsidian plate for the embalming incision. Across on the south wall from this room, you have this cut. We have 2 disturbed mummies, and we're blocked with this blockage that has an inscription in Demotic, and it was put in place by Susanna Bick, and it has prosopography of a burial of a person that is from Dynasty 26. We're still working on another inscription here that is fading out. Deep down, about 16 meters, we found in the shaft itself, we have a context that is more mummies put on top of one another. Some of them are painted coffins like this beautiful poor guy, and had spent 7 days working on salvaging it, but we couldn't. It was literally swimming on water because the wood was like a sponge. That means rain must have reached down to this level and were trapped underneath. So that is exactly what the coffin looked like. How much time do you have? 1 minute? Okay. So we go down. This is why the water was trapped, because of the tuffla was put in the side of the shaft as a result of the excavation of the northern burial chamber. But when we moved it, we found this intact burial chamber for 2 people, an uncle and his nephew. So it's Menechusir and Menechib, and clearly those 2 belong to the same family, and they were able to afford a private burial compartment in this shaft. Deep down, 30 meters, we found the entrance to the northern burial chamber, and it is marked with an engrave of what looks like a mummy to me. We go down, we did our laser scanning, and with the laser scanner that collects 1 million point cloud a second, and we take the color information from an I-star camera. And this is an image of the underground second hallway. This is from a laser scan, not from a photograph. Our laser scanning work on this main shaft that is attached to the embalming workshop looked like exactly like this, with a whole first hallway, a second hallway, and burial compartments everywhere. We have plotted and documented 6 to 8 burial chamber in this level. The good thing is, this is the side shaft of Padinisit and the burial chamber of Padinisit. The distance between the two here is only 5 meters. One of the very interesting things is this eastern burial compartment. What is it in it? This is the large sarcophagus. This is a photogrammetric model of the context with 2 sets of ushabtis here and 2 boxes of canopic jars, alabaster canopic jars inscribed for a lady by the name Tadihur. They were moved to the storerooms, and I'm really very looking forward to the examination of the content of these vessels. In front of the burial chamber of Tadihur, we have this model of the mud boat inscribed with the word Ma'anjid. It's the mourning one. Interesting thing is, this was found at the foot steps of the entrance to the tomb of Tadihur. But inside, there was another model of a boat. Would be that the Mesquitic one? I don't know. We're still examining that. To go on the other side of the hallway, there is the western burial chamber right here. And this is the intact blockage of it when we found it. Inside it, we have 2 stone sarcophagi, limestone sarcophagi. This one belongs to a person who has a Libyan name, Yeput, which means he is possibly an Egyptianized Libyan at this time, and he was a priest of the goddess Nut She'es, a serpent goddess who was an epithet of the goddess Mut since the time of King Ramses II. And even in the Ptolemaic period, it was always associated with Mut in a serpent form. But the first time to find that there is a cult and priesthood that's serving the goddess Nut She'es and must have a temple in Memphis somehow. This other stone sarcophagi yet for another priest of the goddess Nut She'es, and in the middle there's 2 mummies right here. Only in this is the 5th round of photographic documentation of this burial chamber right here. This is how our embalming workshop looked like. The embalmer cachette and the embalming plate, the embalming basins and the ramp, and also the main shaft that I think it is a communal burial shaft. And if I go back a little bit, and they will be the last thing, inside the second burial chamber, on the floor, I have located what I think it's the mouth of another shaft that's going to take us yet another deeper to more complex and richer burials. This is all happening 2 weeks ago, so I'm very excited about it. The work of this mission, 5 seasons, had been done completely by people and young people from the Ministry of Antiquities, from the Documentation Center, from Sakkara, and I have received so much assistance from people from Tübingen, especially digital archaeologists, and our archaeometrist team that is led by Philipp Stockhammer from München, with 2 archaeometrists from Tübingen and 3 chemists from Egypt. I am very much looking forward to the results of residual analysis of these vessels. Thank you very much.